You made it. Welcome back, you beautiful soul, SolidSol here. And if you guys haven't seen the last video, we talked about, well, we did a reaction video about all the new changes coming to For Honor next week, Testing Grounds, Lawbringer, all that good stuff, Highlander buff. But we want to essentially talk about the Medjay nerf that he's getting. Now, this has been a long time coming. He definitely did deserve this nerf because he's been king of team fights for the longest time, ever since he's been released. At first, when he was released, I didn't really think him too strong of a character. He felt very powerful, but he didn't really have anything special going for him until we started learning, how he played in team fights and how ginormous his hitboxes were. Once we started noticing that, I think he became more of a top tier character, especially for casual play. I think the comp players already understood how powerful he was, definitely an S tier pick in team fights. But now that casual play has realized how strong he is, he became one of the best characters just to pick when you were playing this game incredibly drunk. You just spam attacks, target swap this, target swap that, and just reset the ganks that you're performing. And I think one of the best traits about this character is that his dodge attacks were just incredible. Huge hitboxes, he could travel really far with his dodge attack and reposition correctly, and of course his hyper armor chain lights. I think that's the biggest offender, and I'm surprised they didn't touch it because it allows him to essentially just keep attacking for days. It's similar to Berserker, but unfortunately Berserker's hitboxes aren't as good as him. They're very lackluster in comparison because of his small twin axes. Medjay has a huge staff, so it makes sense with these hitboxes. However, with the recent nerfs, his damage reduction has been reduced significantly, and this is good. These are great changes. I think they should have done this a while ago. So quickly going over his nerfs is that his staff mode chain heavy attacks now deal 28 damage, down from 30 on sides and 32 on top, so they're all gonna be the same damage for his chain heavies. All staff mode finisher heavies now deal 30 damage, down from 32 on sides and 34 on top, so they're making the damage values all the same. And I kind of wish the top one dealt a little bit more damage, maybe 1 or 2, but I guess they just wanted to do it all flat out changes. Adjusted attack trajectories to better match weapon visuals for the following attacks: staff mode lights and heavy attack, staff mode zone attack. Now, this is a nerf for his hitboxes, but with his staff, it is still a very large weapon, just comparative to like Jane June's glaive. So I'm pretty sure it's not going to get butchered significantly. They're just going to make it so that he probably doesn't have like a 360 degree hitbox, or just like make it a little bit smaller, which makes sense because quite frankly it clipped you when the weapon visuals weren't even hitting you. It has a pretty good phantom range, just like Highlander's unblockable heavies, but for now these are decent changes because he dominated team fights when he just kept swinging. Yes, he kind of had to worry about hyper armor trades, but realistically, I felt like I was getting a ton of value anyways, whether it be chip damage and external attacks with Medjay compared to Berserker, where you kind of have to be careful on who you trade with because your hitboxes are not going to be hitting everybody. Whereas Medjay, you just didn't really care, and even against like high level players, I didn't really find too much issues with that. Yeah, I might get deleted in a couple of seconds, but I feel like I did my job where I just did a ton of damage already externally, and I didn't have to worry about it. Made it so that the enemy team couldn't really attack. So the nerfs overall are good. One thing I'd like to bring up is that they didn't really touch his grab move on his staff form. This grab move is probably one of the biggest offenders for ganks right now. You can set up 100 to 0 ganks, and it's pretty ridiculous. I'm pretty sure people have been asking for this to be nerfed since Orochi's Storm Rush was nerfed, but I guess Orochi's was a high priority since it could essentially mesh with tons of characters to reset ganks and 100 to 0 people. But Medjay's can also essentially 100 to 0 people too, since his tier 2 feat will lower their defense in staff form. Surprising they didn't do it, but maybe that's something that they're going to try to keep on the character since they didn't buff his axe form, so they nerfed his staff form, which makes sense. Hyper armor is still there. Hitboxes are probably still going to be good. I think he's still going to be remaining a A+ tier character or maybe an S tier character. He's still going to do incredibly well in casual lobbies, I'm sure, since he has huge hitboxes and the hyper armor is going to help tremendously. The only nerf that I would probably suggest is that they'd probably have to lower the damage values of the pin itself, maybe to 15 or 10 or something like that, because 20 is a bit high, especially with the defense debuff that you do get when you land that pin. Because this is a pin move, so if someone does a hit stun, you basically have a free grab from Medjay if you're paying attention. Not sure what else they could do with the pin, but in staff mode, you can use it as a chain bash, which is honestly hilarious. Maybe in some ways you could find it useful, but I've never seen, maybe I've seen like 1 or 2 people get grabbed by it in a 1v1. I don't know, man. That's just hilarious how it's in the chain mix. It just makes zero sense to me. Perhaps if it was feightable, that would make staff form actually viable. But at the moment, it's currently ridiculous to have or even to use, because it's basically a free guard break. The only time I can think it's useful is if you actually have a synergized teammate that's on columns, and once the enemy doesn't parry your heavy attacks and light attacks in chain, and you call them out that you're gonna do a chain bash afterwards, and your teammate can maybe do a light hit stun to confirm the bash. That could probably be pretty helpful, but I haven't seen anybody ever do that, even like competent players against Medjay Graham. They usually just do a light hit stun anyways and get you with the grab from neutral instead of the chain heavy attacks from Medjay. The last thing I want to talk about, and it's fairly important for Medjay, is that with all these nerfs, he didn't really get any compensation for his axe forms. Now his axe form, it's not too shabby, but there are a lot of issues with it. And the main issue is that his hitboxes for his unblockable heavies, they're pretty booty cheeks if I say so myself. People who dodge even away from it when you're supposed to dodge into an external or unblockable heavy attack, they don't get hit by it, and it leaves you wide open for a dodge bash and a dodge attack, and it's pretty unlucky if I say so myself. So if they increase the hitboxes of his axe, which is the only thing that they really need to do, because the 500 bash is not too shabby, and I think the forward dodge one is not too bad either. I love the animation of him running up. It kind of feels like Tiandi, where he has really smooth animations. He just kind of like dances up to him and goes for a guard break. Really smooth transition. I love that. And of course, he still has those 400 ms chain light attacks, which can be pretty decent if I say so myself. When you're trying to 1v1 someone, the animations can be really hard to read too if you're not focusing on just the indicators. Same thing for the animations for the unblockable. Really hard to read and tell, but if the hitboxes were improved, most people won't be able to just dodge you. The damage values aren't that bad, except for maybe his dodge bashes. Perhaps they could get a little bit of a damage increase because they don't do that much damage. Perhaps buffing the damage values to maybe 15, 14 or anything like that would be pretty darn helpful. Right now, it just doesn't do enough damage in my opinion. So that'll help him in the 1v1 categories, not just specifically for 1v1 duels, but 1v1s in Dominion. And Dominion, a lot of 1v1s do happen, and dealing the most amount of damage in the shortest amount of time before their teammate comes is really beneficial and helps him out a lot, because that enemy who has lost that extra 15 health or extra 10 health is going to be deleted in a confirmed heavy attack or confirmed light attack. So those damage values should be adjusted, and the hitboxes for his unblockable heavies should also be improved. After that, I don't think he needs any more changes when it comes to number values or hitbox adjustments. The next thing I'd like for Medjay to actually get improved upon is his stances. One important thing is that he needs to be able to remain in whatever stance he was beforehand, because it can be pretty trivial when you want to use your feats or a certain stance to fight somebody. Swapping to a different stance at that time, a lot of people can just light attack you, not on reaction of course. You will be frustrated from time to time when you want to be in a specific scenario, such as having your tier 4s, which you can get fairly early if you're just farming mid lane and helping your teammate gank. Swapping to your axe form is very telegraphed on what you want to be doing to the enemy, because if I see a Medjay swap to his axe forms and he has his tier 4s, I'm gonna know he's gonna try to spam that at me. So if I focus up and react to his tier 4 animations, well then I can see that he's going to absolutely just destroy all my HP. So making that quality of life change will be incredibly beneficial for Medjay, not only in 1v1 potentials, but in team fights as well. I suspect that one of the reasons they didn't do this is because, well, Medjay's double axe form doesn't really have a running attack animation, so perhaps that is one of the issues, but then you could just give him Zerker's running attack animation, because they're basically the same weapons and he takes a lot of the same animations from Zerker in the first place. The last thing I want to mention for Medjay is that his stance swaps aren't very smooth. What I think they should be doing is allow him to attack during that, or maybe a transitional attack like in Bloodborne, how I explained in my Medjay video, or I play Medjay so you don't have to. That video I think would really be beneficial. In Bloodborne, you can do, when you swap your weapon, your trick weapon, you would do an attack of sorts like a heavy or light attack and swap to that specific type of weapon. And Medjay, when he swaps to his staff form, when he's in his axe form, he could do like a zone attack of sorts. It could be fairly telegraphed, but if you could feint that, that'd be pretty darn cool, and vice versa. I think this is more reserved for like a rework which would be maybe in the near future, since Medjay is not in particular need of a huge rework at the moment. There's characters like Nucio or Peacekeeper, and of course Highlander's getting a rework already, but those characters definitely needed it more than him, so we'd probably come after that. And after all that's settled, Medjay could probably get those transitional moves, which would be pretty damn awesome if I say so myself. Not only would that make his stances feel more smooth, but it would also make him feel more satisfying to play, especially in team fights and having some sort of mix-up potential. Swapping your staff form and your axe form really doesn't do much in mix-up potential. It can kind of fake out your opponent depending on how well you play and how good your reactions are, but you're not going to be able to swap to a different stance and parry the following light attack compared to Highlander, who can go into his offensive stance and out of it really quickly to bait out people who try to light attack or heavy and go for crush counters or go for sweet light parries. He can fast flow into offensive stance really smoothly because he has the potential to be, you know, a double stance character that can flow perfectly and get some nice plays, whereas Medjay, you kind of have to swap your stance and just stay in neutral or go into your fence and hope that they don't interrupt you. So like I said, that's reserved for a different time at the moment. Now, I like playing Medjay not because he's one of the most broken characters in the game right now, but simply because he has one of the most satisfying heavy animations of all time, next to Highlander, Lawbringer's light parry animations. You know, I want to compare it to Lawbringer. People don't play Lawbringer because he's like one of the best defensive characters. Some people do, obviously, because you get an impale after heavy parry, but people play Lawbringer because his animations, his fashion is top tier. Getting that light parry is all that matters for the ad mortem adamicus. People play him for that reason, and I play Medjay specifically because, damn, those heavies, they freaking go hard, my guy. And of course, I love Medjay simply due to the fact that he was in The Mummy. The Mummy movies are the best movies, and I've always wanted a Medjay character ever since I was a damn kid. So you can see why sometimes I like fighting people in my staff form, even though the axe form is much more viable in 1v1s. Sometimes it can be risky trying to parry Medjay's heavy attacks in his staff form because one, they have hyper armor and they're really slow. They're incredibly slow. So if I delay my light attacks and delay my heavy attacks and you might make the wrong read on parrying that light attack, it could be very dangerous for you. Overall, it's not going to be the best mix-up whatsoever comparative to your unblockables, your bashes, and your 400ms lights from your chain axes. But I mean, it's fun as hell to use, I kid you not. And that's really about it. I wanted to talk about Medjay because he's one of my favorite characters strictly because of his animations and the character itself, not because he's one of the best characters in the game. And I want him to be a little bit stronger. I mean, he's good right now, and I think he has a place in the meta, even in 1v1s and Dominion. He's pretty strong overall. But, you know, everything that can be improved about the character is fairly simple, besides the fact that, you know, transitional attacks on his staff form to his axe forms would be greatly appreciated. What do you guys think about Medjay's nerf? Do you guys think he needs some buffs? And do you hate the character? Do you like him? And I think a lot of people do enjoy playing him. He's a great character, really fun. You can just kind of no-brain him and get results, especially in this meta, but we'll see how he plays out when he does get his hitbox nerfs. I'm really stoked for this season. I think this is going to be the best season ever. We've gotten a lot of good balance changes overall and more good balance changes coming soon with Highlander rework. And I think I'll make a video talking about the Lawbringer rework because I do have a few qualms about it and I want to talk about it, so I'll see you guys on that video. It'll be pretty interesting discussion, but I'm pretty happy about the state of the game. Reflex guard is going to be gone, and you know, I think it's a good time. We be eating good out here, you know, we be eating good as the For Honor community, if I say so myself. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I like to read them and see your thoughts. Always interesting to see what you guys have to say about the video game and my thoughts in general. Thank you for watching. The box is going to be playing more For Honor and Starfield as well. Be sure to check out my Twitch where I stream For Honor and other games like Dark Tide, Starfield, and of course Escape from Tarkov. And sometimes I'm just editing and chilling and talking with you guys and having some fun. Alright, take care guys. Bye bye. See you later.